Kirk, welcome to the afternoon shift. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on. Can you tell us what financial changes are coming next month? I read that you're going to be turning more to local taxpayers. Maybe tell us more about what's going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is who doesn't love talking about school finance and elections, a few days before the first Tuesday after the first Monday, right? I think what we see this typically are our school districts have become more dependent on local operating levies as well as other levies that help maintain their facilities, build their buildings. And so on Tuesday, many of our school districts, approximately 78 of our school districts, will be going out to ask their local citizens for revenue that is important not only to their programming, but to their security, to cybersecurity, safety, facilities, all of those things that make our public school districts effective and safe for our students and families.
So how exactly do these referendums work?
Right. So uniquely, Minnesota requires our school districts, if you want additional revenue, or to go to your local voters. That's unlike other local governments. And so uniquely, in addition to that, is unfortunately sometimes the voters may say no. So that can have implications as well. But there really are three basic questions that our school districts will be asking. One will be related to your operating referendum, and that operating referendum really does the day-to-day stuff for our school districts. And we have seen increasingly our school districts become much more dependent on that operating referendum over the years. A second one is what they call a capital project levy, and that really is about capital projects. That can include technology, school safety, handicap accessibility, those perhaps some or mostly are smaller projects, but I think the other important one in there, maybe I mentioned this, was technology, because is once you kind of get down that technology train, and you need to upgrade, you need to keep it relevant, you need to keep it important. So continued investments in that is something as well. And then thirdly, we have what we call our bonding requests. And our bonding really focus on facilities for our school districts, whether you have aging buildings or buildings that need some serious remodeling or upgrades. That is a third option for our school districts to seek local revenue to help, whether it's build or remodel their school district buildings.
Kirk, have you faced any sort of pushback from any sort of citizens that maybe don't want to fork over some extra cash to help out the school board association?
Well, sure. I think these elections, these local school district elections, are inherently local. I mean, they really, and so among the citizens, as you can imagine, I think one of the things they know that it will be on the ballot in November. And so our school districts, I maintain, do an outstanding job of taking the time to inform and make sure that the electorate is knowledgeable about what they're asking for, whether it's one of those three levies that I shared. And they also share the consequences if this does not pass, and what this may mean, whether it's increased class sizes, a delay in the facilities, perhaps a delay in the cybersecurity insurance, or whatever it may be that they're asking their citizens for.
We talked about it a little bit in the intro to the segment, but what are some of the reasons that local school districts are turning more and more to these referendums?
Well, I don't know if it's so much more and more. I just think it's part of the equation. I think our funding, as we look at this, our funding really does come from local communities, our local districts. A large chunk comes from the state, and then another chunk comes from the federal government. And so when we see perhaps some delays or uncertainty at the state or federal level, then we also see many of our districts who want to maintain and continue their programs may go to their taxpayers for local money to pay for those programs. So it's something that we see every year, and I think one of the things that we also know is that there are time limits on these levies. The legislature has put a time stamp on those, and most of those are, at least on the operating levy and the cap project levy, anywhere from 6 to 10 years. So the cap is actually 10 years. And so that's what we also see is if our districts have become accustomed or dependent upon the local levy, if that goes away, the programs that there was funding will also go away. And so many of this is timing. And so many of them may be being pushed up against that 10-year limit, and they need to renew that levy. And so that's what our school districts will be doing.
Kirk, how do Minnesota schools, public schools, fare against the other 49 states out there? Like, where are our students ranking in regards to test scores and college placement compared to other states?
Well, I think that's a complicated question. I think that I maintain our Minnesota school districts are as strong as they have ever been. Now, do we have work ahead of us? Absolutely. And I think the MCA test scores, which many people point to, which is part of a student's experience, not the total student experience in terms of measuring success, certainly could stand for improvement in the reading and mathematics scores. But I maintain Minnesotans have always had this strong connection to their community schools and understanding the importance that it does for building those kids for the future. And so while recognizing that challenges are ahead of us, I think disinvesting is not a solution. We maintain that investing in our public schools is the direction that our communities should go. And again, many of these are locally asked questions, and so inherently apparent for our communities to understand what our school districts are asking for. So they're informed when they go into the ballot box to cast a vote.
You've given a couple examples, but what are some things that are up for like in these referendums this upcoming week?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because what we've seen a little bit over the trend over the last 2 to 4 years is the issue of security. And many of our districts talk about that. That's number one priority, and they are putting their words into action. And many of our districts are trying to find ways to make their staff and students create more safe environments for them, whether it's the entryways for the school buildings or eliminating some entryways in the school building to have all of the parents and students go through one setting. So there's some mechanics to that. I think the other piece is technology. I referred to this earlier. I think many of our districts understand the value and importance of the future of technology. And once you go down that path, as you know, technology advances. All you have to do is look at the AI world that we're in today. Upgrades, additional investments are needed to make sure that they have adequate facilities and adequate technology for their students. So those are two big ones. I think the other one is the general sense of, there's a lot of operating referendums, but the general sense of facility upgrades. Many of these buildings today, whether you're in greater Minnesota or in the 7-county metro area, have old buildings in their school districts. And these are investments that the community has made. And we think it's important as a superintendent and school board to maintain those investments. And so sometimes you just need a little love and care, and that requires some additional investments by the community to make sure that those school districts or school buildings are in great shape and provide great safety for our students.
Kirk, I'm not sure if there's like an exact answer to this, but by how much more taxes or whatever will people be spending if these referendums do get passed?
Right. So that's a great question. So when you look at the whole, we said about 74 of our school districts will be going out, some asking more than one question. On the bonding side and the capital project side, the total amount will be about $1.6 billion. Now, understand that many of our districts in greater Minnesota who are smaller, their their portions or their requests reflect the size of their district. So they're going to ask for smaller amounts. The other side of it is that many of our districts go out and inform the communities about what the actual cost will be to a homeowner who may own a home of $250,000 or $350,000, to be very clear of the financial impact if a vote yes is secured, and also sharing the consequences if that is not supported by the community. So and I think one of the great things about doing an odd year election, and many of our districts look at this, is odd year being the odd numbered year, is that it really it allows the districts to kind of shine a light on their requests. You don't get lost in the national politics. You don't get lost in other elections that are happening at the state level. Many of our districts, this may be the only item on the ballot for their citizens.
Kirk, what was kind of like the tone of some of these referendums? Because I read for a while there post-pandemic that it was getting a little competitive, but it seems like things have kind of the tensions have kind of smoothed out a little bit more lately.
Yeah, I think, in addition to the bond or the referendum request, we also have about 20 plus school districts who are having their general election, and there's some special elections for school board seats. So I would agree with you on this comment. I think, during the COVID phase when we were distance learning, there were some very contentious board meetings, and people were lacking trust in their public schools. And so I feel like we're far enough away from that now that we're starting to see things normalize, not only in terms of the number of people who are running for school board seats, but it feels like we're kind of getting back to normal again, where people are back to work and regular life, and referendums from our school districts are part of that. And so it's an inherently, as I said, inherently local piece that our school districts do a really nice job of sharing the needs of those schools.
Kirk Schneidawind, the executive director of the Minnesota School Boards Association. Where can people learn more about your association?
Well, we're at www.mnsba.org. We're a statewide organization that represents all 331 of our public school districts. And so for election-related pieces, though, I would encourage you to go to your school district's website to learn more, so you are informed when you jump into that ballot box.
Awesome. Kirk, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thanks.